What's up, YouTube? Tim Moves here. Now, here is my throwback segment where I talk about the films that turns 10, 20, and the big 3-0 this week. Alright, the films that are celebrating their 10th anniversary this week. Oh boy, we got some good ones here. We, of course, got Star Trek Into Darkness. Now, in my opinion, this is actually the best Al J.J. Abrams Star Trek films. I mean, his reboot was pretty good, and Beyond was pretty decent too, which was actually the last Star Trek movie we got on big screen, by the way. But Into Darkness was terrific. I'm not even I'm not really like a huge Star Trek guy or anything like that. I mean, I've enjoyed Star Trek and everything, but I'm more into Star Wars than I am to Star Trek. But Star Trek Into Darkness was a really cool one. And of course, spoiler, you also had Benedict Cumberbatch play the role of Khan, which I remember pretty much I remember when like Benedict Cumberbatch was first cast, he was pretty much pulling an Andrew Garfield like before No Way Home, came to be. And Benedict Cumberbatch kept saying, I am not Khan, I'm not Khan, blah blah. But when you saw the movie, it actually turns out that he was the iconic Khan character. So it shows just because an actor says, like between this and the Andrew Garfield situation, it shows just because an actor says they're not playing character or something's not in the film or anything like that. That you can't always take them seriously sometimes, but this is definitely one of those situations. But man, Star Trek Into Darkness was such an awesome one. You had the late great Anton Yelchin in this. Of course, you had Chris Pine reprising his role as Captain J.T. Kirk, Simon Pegg, Zach Aquino, John Cho, Leonard Nimoy, of course, appearing in this. Alice Eve, which, come on, who did not love that Alice Eve scene? I'm not really going into details, but you know what scene with Alice Eve I'm talking about. I mean, yeah. But, yeah, this was a pretty decent one. And, of course, it was actually J.J. Abrams' last Star Trek movie because, of course, he will go on to be replaced by, I think it's Justin Lin who directed Beyond, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, it's still pretty. All right, now, other films out turning 10, which are more small affairs. We got Noah Baumbach's Frances Ha, starring Greta Gerwig, Adam Driver, Grace Gummer was also in this. And it's a story that follows a New York woman who doesn't really have like an apartment, and she like apprentices for a dance company, although she's not really a dancer, and throws herself headlong into her dreams here. Frances Ha is really good. I mean, of course, the movie is full on black and white, directed by Noah Baumbach, who's always terrific. Greta Gerwig was great in this. It's really funny, hard film, really good film if you guys haven't seen that. Alright, also showing 10, we got the indie movie The English Teacher, which stars Oscar winner Julianne Moore along with Greg Kinnear, Michael Ajarano, I think his name is, Lily Collins, Nathan Lane, Tracy Turnblad herself, Nikki Blonsky. And the movie stars Julianne Moore, who plays this popular teacher who turns topsy turvy when a former star pupil returns home after like a failed career as a playwright. And she also and like very unwillingly to see the young man gave up on his dream, she decided to produce his play at her high school. And Greg Kinnear was great in this. Julianne Moore was good. I saw this one in theaters back in 2013 at Village East Cinema one time. Really decent little film. Julianne Moore was great. Greg Kinnear. It's a shame that Nikki Blonsky doesn't do anything anymore. I mean, she was a big star when Hairspray got released. It's a shame she hasn't really broken out and trained any more mainstream past some years. But it was still pretty cool to see her pop up in this. All right. Now, also turning 10, we got the horror movie Black Rock, which of course stars Katie Axton from I believe she's on that show The League, if I'm not mistaken. You also had Lake Bell and Kate Bosworth. Really interested to see Lake Bell in this. Like, when you think of Lake Bell, you don't really think of horror. So seeing like Lake Bell and even Katie Axton starring in this, which that's a very interesting roles because you really associate them with horror. But this was actually a really intriguing film. They cosplayed these three friends who reunite after years apart on a remote island, but end up having to fight for their lives. And this movie is really creepy. It's really interesting, very entertaining, crazy twists and turns around, crazy stuff that happens in this. So definitely give Black Rock a go if you guys haven't seen it. Right now, the film's turning 20. We've, of course, got The Matrix Reloaded. Of course, the second installment of the Matrix franchise, which, of course, this and I believe the last one, Revolution, both got released in the same year. Usually rare to see sequels coming out the same year, though. So, yeah, that was it. And Matrix Reloaded, I'm just going to get out of the way. It was bad. I mean, the first Matrix movie really changed cinema perfectly with the sci fi genre. But the sequels, directed by the Wachowskis, were awful. Now, I admit the last one that got released, the one that got released back in 2021, that one actually is a better of the sequels, but that's not saying much. But that aside, yeah, Matrix Reloaded is just god awful. Here of course you got Keanu Reeves as Neo, Carrie Ann Moss back as Trinity, and Lawrence Fishburne back as Morpheus, who continue to lead the revolt against the Machine Army, unleashing their arsenal of extraordinary skills and weaponry against the systematic forces of repression and expulsions and stuff. And so, yeah, the script in this wasn't great. It was not all that good. I mean, hey, same video I'm talking about Matrix and Star Trek. Talk about a cool week for sci-fi, I guess. But yeah, Matrix Reloaded is just maybe not as bad as Revolution, but Reloaded was still pretty terrible. All right, also turning 20, we got Pokemon Heroes, also known as Pokemon Heroes Latios and Latias. Now, Pokemon Heroes focuses on the main characters Ash, Misty, and Brock continue their journey through the Johto region. Of course, this was around the time where they were doing the Johto adventures, which I always loved the Johto adventures. I don't know why. The Johto adventures were always fun. But anyway. And of course, they continue their journey through the Johto region, and the main location of the film is based in Venice, Italy. And the name is given to the city in the film as the Alto Mare. And of course, here, they do encounter these two Pokemon called Latios and Latias. And I gotta say, I really quite like this one. I mean, it was actually the first major wide release Diaco Pokemon film that got released. And obviously the best Pokemon Diaco film is probably obviously Pokemon the first movie, of course. But you know what? I really loved Pokemon Heroes. Of course, this was the fifth installment. How this Latios and Latias were really awesome. I believe they were actually funny enough, they were not even Johto Pokemons. They were actually like the one with those two. They were of course part of the other generation, generation 3 I think it was. So it's always cool how like they've always had like a generation like um different generations in a feature before that generation was introduced. So I always found that should be interesting. Like, of course, the movie 2000, when Generation 2 Pokemon like Lugia was featured. And of course, there was Generation 2 Pokemon that was featured in Pokemon the first movie. I always found that to be interesting. But yeah, Pokemon Heroes is really good, though. All right. Now, the film's turning dirty. Not a lot of great stuff here. First up, we got Excessive Force, starring Thomas Ian Griffith, who you might know as Terry Silvers from Karate Kid Part 2, and of course, he recently appeared in Cobra Kai. Detective Terry McCain is accused of robbery and murder and needs to prove his innocence with his own hands before the Chicago Mafia and his fellow law enforcement officers take him out. Now, the cast also includes Charlotte Lewis, Lance Henriksen, James Earl Jones, Tony Todd, Ian Gomez, Burt Young, W. Earl Brown. This is a god awful film. I mean, it's definitely one of those like so bad it's good action movies, but yeah, it was just really terrible. I mean, Thomas Ian Griffin, of course, whenever you think of him, obviously you think of the Karate Kid and everything. So they were trying to pretty much give him his major lead role, and this was definitely not it. All right. Also turning 30, we got Lost in Yonkers. which is based on a Neil Simon play of the same name, directed by Valley Girl director Martha Coolidge, featuring folks like Richard Dreyfuss, David Shafarin, Mike Damas, and it does take place in 1940s, where like Jay, played by Michael Damas, and Artie, played by Brad Stowe, find their lives turned upside down when their father moves south for work, and leaving them both with their no nonsense grandmother, played by Irene War, and their loving but absent minded Spanish aunt Bella, played by Mercedes Raul. And along the way, they're also introduced to their uncle Louis, played by Richard Dreyfuss, who's a small town crook. And of course, you have Belle, who decides to marry her boyfriend Johnny, played by David Shafarin. Not a bad little film here. Maybe the better movies in the dirtier one, but that's not really saying much, obviously. You know, Richard Dreyfuss was pretty great. David Shafarin was pretty good. Not a bad little film here. Also turning dirty, we got the movie Pose, which is of course directed by Mario Van Peebles, and features a cast that includes the likes of Stephen Baldwin, Billy Zane, Tone Lock, Tiny Lister, Big Daddy Kane, Isaac Hayes, Carl Winslow himself, Ronald Van Johnson, Pam Grier, Nipsey Russell, and Faison Love. And I gotta say, this was a really nice little western. You had to, of course, if you guys don't know much about the story here, the film tells the story of of a pool of African American soldiers and one ostracized white soldier who were all betrayed by a corrupt colonel. And the story starts with like a group of escaping with a cage of gold, and continues with their like leader Jason Lee, played by Jesse Lee. I almost said Jason Lee, played by Mario Van Peebles, who's taking a revenge on the men who killed their preacher father and all. And it's a really decent, fun little western. I mean, it's not great or anything, but the performances by like Mario Van Peebles was pretty good. Stephen Baldwin, I mean, not a bad little western flick here. But that's pretty much it there. Let me lead you guys. Which of these films stand out to you the most? To me, the 10-year one also would be Star Trek Into Darkness. The 20-year one would be Pokemon Heroes. And the dirty one, you know, I'm actually going to go say Pose. It's not a great film, but maybe the better film on that list. Anyway, drop comments, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell for notification. This is Simon Zaya.